Hello and welcome back to my channel, which is dedicated to philosophy, music and culture. I am philosopher and violinist, so Aesthetics of Friedrich Wilhelm Schelling. (1775), 1854, the years of his living. Initially, Schelling was in the position of subjective idealism, of the sense of Fichte, Johann Gottlob Fichte, but then he sharply diverges from Fichte and moves to the positions of objective idealism. From these positions, Schelling addresses the problems of aesthetics. In his works, The System of Transcendental Idealism, 1800, The Philosophy of Art, and also his thoughts about the relationship of the fine arts to nature. Schelling's aesthetics views became known at the very beginning of 19th century. If Schiller had a sharply negative attitude to the Romanticism, and romantic ideas and artistic practice of Romanticism, then Schelling's theory of art is to a certain extent to Romanticism. Extent close to the Romanticism, and Schelling defines beauty and art as the infinite expressed in the finite. Art appears to him as an emanation of the absolute, showing in each individual work of art, of course, individual work, the identity of the objective and the subjective in the unity, respectively the unconscious and the conscious. It is obvious that Schelling has an irrational understanding of the objective side of artistic creativity. It acts on the artist as an unknown, unconscious force, and here we can remember, of course, Kantian conception of genius as absolutely irrational sense or force of creativity. So this unconscious force prompting him to express things that are not completely open to his eyes and have an inscrutable depth. But the most amazing things, according to Schelling, is not the existence of opposite abilities, but the possibility of their connection and action in this unity. The interaction of the unconscious and conscious sides doesn't lend itself to rational understanding. But after all, the universe in its entirety contains much of this unity, much of something has not yet been mastered by consciousness, but by our consciousness, of course. That is why each individual result of such interaction, a work of art, bears the imprint of the integrity of the surrounding world, of our universe, preserving in itself that part of it that is incomprehensible in real life is able to act only as an object of contemplation. So Schelling's theory of the symbol has also become famous in aesthetics and in philosophy, in fine art, of course. The philosopher distinguished between such concepts as scheme, allegory, and symbol. By the scheme, he understands such a way of representation when the special is depicted through the general. So schematic language, the language of scheme, is as general as possible. And in allegory, on the contrary, the general is contemplated through the special. These are, for example, numerous pictorial allegories of justice, law, love, beauty, and so on and so forth. The symbol is a synthesis of these both concepts. In it, in symbol, the complete identity of the general and the special. The object and the idea is achieved. They are united. Describing the place of aesthetic contemplation in his system, Schelling writes that the whole system unfolds as if between two opposite poles, one of which is intellectual and the other is aesthetic contemplation. Contemplation of the first kind, since it is necessary exclusively for the purposes of the orientation of the spirit, which appears only in philosophizing, remains generally outside of circle of ordinary consciousness, A contemplation of the second type being nothing more than intellectual contemplation that has acquired objectivity and general significance, can at least arise in any consciousness. By the way, it's something more universal. Schelling is ranked among the number of romantic thinkers, and I might even say maybe creators. So, however, it cannot be said that he was an abstract mystic like Novalis, for example, whom Schelling, to tell the truth, didn't sympathize so much. In his research, in Schelling's research, the philosopher also relies on scientific discovery, and he should rely on these scientific discoveries. The most fruitful and reachful and thoughtful period in Schelling's activity was when he created a philosophy of nature, using the natural science experience of the late 18th century. In his philosophy of nature, he formulates the idea that unconsciousness, spiritual nature, due to the presence of dynamic opposites, develops certain stages, on one of which a person appears after his creation. Person, he means human being, of course. And Schelling's merit was that he created the doctrine of the dialectical development of nature, although his dialectic was objectively idealistic, of course. So art was a certain crown of the creation of the human spirit. And in a work of art, the original basis of any harmony of the subjective and objective, which in its original identity can be given only in intellectual contemplation, is completely freed from subjectivity and objectified to the end. And it's something like precursor or basis for Schopenhauer's aesthetic views, you know. I think so. Raising the question of the relationship between science and art. Schelling solves it in favor of art. Art, in his opinion, is higher than science. Art should be a prototype of science, and science only hurries after what has already been available to art. So intuitively, art is also some kind of science, you know. So in general, we can say that this view of the world had a strong influence on the further development of art and its desire for synthesis, and we can recall, for example, operas of Wagner, but of course he desires to synthesize all kind of arts in his operas, not science, but you know, Claude Lévi-Strauss describes the operas of Wagner like the first anthropological issues and research, by the way. So, the unity of scientific and artistic understanding is a key moment for Schelling's philosophizing. And Schelling's philosophical system, as is known, rests on the positions of two series in which the absolute is concretized, the ideal and the real. Accordingly, the system of arts is also divided. The real series is represented by music, architecture, painting, and plastic art. And this rank is so the music, then painting, according to Schelling, because painting is the first from art that reproduces images. It depicts the special, the particular in the universal, and the category that characterizes painting is subordination. And then Schelling sees the art that synthesizes music and painting in plastic, which includes architecture and sculpture. Schelling considers architecture to a large extent in terms of reflecting organic forms in it, at the same time emphasizing its kinship with music. The sculpture completes a real range of arts, of the visual arts, reproduced the absolute in the concrete, material, and corporeal form. And then poetry implements these in general, and the art of the word is the art of the ideal for Schelling. It's very high art, the highest art, to tell the truth, because of course he was philosopher at first. And Schelling's specification of certain types of poetry was lyrics, epic, and drama. And then Schelling analyzes separately the lyrics, the epic and the drama, and after that analysis of the novel and the tragedy. So the novel, as you know, appeared in modern times, and it actually didn't exist until the beginning of the 19th century, maybe the end of 18th century. So the Romantics were the first to create the theory of the novel as such, and it arose under the influence of the development of realistic drama. And in his concept of the tragedy, Schelling partly proceeds from the ideas of Schiller, who gave not only a theory but also, of course, brilliant examples of the tragic genre, For Schiller, the meaning of tragedy is the victory of spiritual freedom over the unreasonable, blind, natural necessity of faith. And for Schelling, this meaning is that in the clash of freedom and necessity also. And Hegel tries to combine the positions of Schiller and Schelling, but noticeably leaning towards the latter. So thank you for your attention. I think that's enough for today, and see you in the next video. All good to you.